What is happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Mile High on Broad podcast. We've got a great show for you guys today. We're going to be talking about some football families, some brothers, some fathers, families that have played together in some way or fashion in the NFL. Some of them have played together, some of them haven't. And just, I love having these debates. Who's the better brother? And so I thought, hey, let's take a look at some of these guys in the league, and let's have some comparison chats. Shockingly, I found a list that there have been 377 brothers that have played together in the NFL, which is a ludicrous amount of brothers that have played together in the NFL. Look, some of these guys you're all going to know, and some of them you've probably never heard of. And I threw a couple of those names on this list. Look, we all know who's going to be better when I list these names off, but I just thought it was interesting, so I threw them on there. We're also going to talk about some families that played, fathers, sons, brothers. And then I got a special section at the end of just, fathers and sons that played in the NFL. We'll kind of talk through our thoughts on those. But starting in, Mike, how you feeling today?
I'm doing good, hanging in there. Allergies are back, so this has always been fun. I also got a nice little shiner there on the face, so don't worry for you at home that are watching that. Ben is not beating me up, so I promise it's something else. But other than that, doing great. Happy to talk some football.
Nice. So yeah, I think we're gonna start off with some brothers. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give you two names.
Mhm.
The brothers. I guess some of them will be three, but we'll give you some names of some brothers that are playing. And I want our take, first and foremost on who is the better of the two brothers, right?
Mhm.
Um, some of these might have a little bit more debate than the others, but I kind of want to see who we thinking the best of the brothers are. And I'm gonna start us off with probably the best debate of the night. We got Travis and Jason Kelsey.
Yeah.
These are two all-time great players at their positions,
Yep.
but you got to pick one. No homerism.
Well, it's gonna be a little difficult.
No, I'm just kidding. I think Jason Kelsey is the better of the two brothers.
Yeah.
Look, I love Travis. I think he'll probably go down as one of the greatest tight ends of all time.
Yep.
Um, but Jason is a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. I mean, he's fun to watch. He's one of the best centers to ever play the game. Guys that are true offensive linemen from the league will tell you he's one of the best they've ever seen play the game. So, um, nothing against Travis and his antics, but to me, Jason is an anchor, and he's the better of the two brothers.
See, I'm inclined to agree with you. I think Jason is the better of the two. However, I think Travis is probably the first ballot Hall of Famer, and Jason probably is not. And that's purely, I think, because of a positional thing. I think Jason has the unfortunate position of playing offensive line, where the casual fan, 95% of fans, they don't know what they're looking at when they're looking at the offensive line. All they know is if they're doing terrible, but they don't really know who's doing really good. Um,
He doesn't get that fantasy player backup that
no,
the Travis Kelsey fans are going to throw in there.
exactly. So he doesn't get any of that. And Travis he plays the glamour fashion of the tight end too, right? Like he's not a blocking tight end, he's a receiving tight end. So he has been excellent in fantasy for the last, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years now. He doesn't really like to get in and do the gritty blocking all the time. He can do it sometimes, but he doesn't do it a lot. So I would agree that I think Jason is the better of the two because he's more well rounded at his position. But I think Travis is probably the first ballot Hall of Famer.
All right, this should be another fun one. We got J.J. Watt,
Yep.
T.J. Watt,
Uh huh.
and the middle
And
brother, Derek Watt.
let's go. Let's go, Derek. No, no.
And JJ now the only one who's no longer playing in the league, as Derek and TJ both play for the Steelers.
That they do.
Except that Derek is a fullback, so not very many people probably know who he is.
Unless you're a Steelers fan.
And even then, that's a high question mark.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, at the moment, I think you have to go JJ is clearly the better of the three or two, if you really will.
Hey,
Three-time defensive player of the year. I mean, he's a part of the all-decade team. He's an all-timer already. Like he's already in the Hall of Fame, whether or not he's been voted there or not, right? He's done.
yeah,
But with that being said, I think TJ has the potential to be just as good as him. He's already won a Defensive Player of the Year. He's been in the runnings for probably two or three others. So I think it's going to almost come down to, are TJ's length of career, is TJ's like, 7, 8, 9, 10 years going to be better than what JJ did in 3 or 4 years, right? Because JJ was robbed of a lot of his prime and a lot of possible extended prime from all those injuries that he had. I mean, at some point he was out there wearing that Gronk looking, robotic arm. But look, 3 Defensive Player of the Years is incredible. So it's going to be a matter of, hey, would you rather have 3 Defensive Players of the Years, and that was a majority of what he did, as opposed to somebody that has 1 or 2, but then also had a decade of 10 plus sacks. So
yeah, I mean, look, TJ is really good, and I think he will be one of the better edge rushers, of our lifetime. But JJ did things that have never been done before. Like, I put JJ in the conversation for one of the greatest defensive players of all time.
sure.
TJ to me is maybe one of the best players playing today, but I'm not putting him in that conversation with all time. Look, I don't know. I mean, look, if he throws a bunch more 20 sack seasons in there, I mean, we can have some conversations maybe, but I don't know if I see that happening. I mean, that's such a ridiculous number to put in, especially as they start protecting quarterbacks more and more and more. JJ to me is the superior brother, even though TJ is really good and Derek's one hell of a blocker. So this will be the first one where I don't think there's going to be any debates. We can just kind of say a name and go on. I just think it's fun to put these in. So we got Dan, Chris, and Rob Gronkowski. So for those of you who
Clearly
didn't
it's
know,
Dan. I mean, Dan Gronkowski is clearly the legendary tight end of the family. No,
yeah,
it's
Chris,
definitely
Chris actually played for the Broncos for a little while.
there you
And
go.
I was like, is that like Gronkowski? Is he related? Yeah, they are. They're brothers. They're not very good. One did play tight end like his brother. One played fullback. It's clearly Gronk. I don't think this needs to be a discussion. Greatest
Did you
one
really
tight
just try
ends of
to
all time. So
differentiate the Gronkowskis by saying it's clearly Gronk?
yes, yeah, because they're Gronkowski and he's Gronk. All right, he made it Gronk. They're just Dan and Chris.
You're not wrong. Yeah, look, Rob Gronkowski has a case for the greatest tight end ever. He's probably the single most dominant tight end we've ever seen. So, yeah, it's definitely got to be Rob.
All right, Mike, these next two guys, they played in the NFL, but are more known for their coaching prowess.
Yeah,
Jim and John Harbaugh both
yeah.
actually played together. So I know a lot was made of Jason and Travis being the first brothers to play each other in the Super Bowl this last year. They
Yep.
technically played together first, but, Jim and John were the first brothers up against each other, head coaches on either end of that Super Bowl. So I thought they kind of just threw them a little bit of shade. But where do you stand on the Jim and John Harbaugh train?
Yeah, so for me, I think it's relatively clear. I think it's John Harbaugh. I don't think Jim has much of a case of being better than Jim. I'm sorry, I don't think Jim has much of a better case of being better than John. Look, John won that Super Bowl head to head. So head to head in Super Bowls, he's 1-0 all time. 1 Super Bowl ring to 0 Super Bowl rings. And John's been in the NFL for the Ravens for, I don't know, a decade now, 12 years now, whatever, however long it's been. Jim's issue is not that he's not a fantastic coach. His issue is that his flame burns really hot and really fast. And after about 3 or 4 years, teams, players, organizations, coaches, everybody gets tired of him and he has to move on. So while I think if you're looking for a win now mode, like I'm looking to win, my window is this next 3 to 4 years, maybe you go with Jim. But all time, long term, I'm looking to build a franchise. I'm looking for sustained excellence. Give me John.
Yeah, look, Jim is a winner. He's won everywhere, but I think you're right.
Sure.
I mean, John and what you've seen him do to put a competitive team on the field in a really, really tough division. And to me, just the way he was able to adapt, his offense so quickly to a Lamar Jackson style offense to
Very
me
different.
said a lot about how he is as a coach, his
Yep.
ability to not just put one type of a product on the field. That to me says a lot about a coach. So I think we're in agreement there as well. Michael and Martellus Bennett, the Bennett brothers.
Mm.
So fun guys to talk about. I'll tell you where I stand on this one.
Yeah, here.
To me, it's Marcus. Or not Marcus. None of them are Marcus. To me, it's
Yeah,
Michael.
making people up, man. New
I,
family members.
I'm looking at. I started Mike, and then I ended with Ellis, and it became Micus. To me, it's Michael Bennett. I mean, this dude was a key piece of the Legion of Boom. He was an elite defensive guy. Like Martellus was a very good tight end, but aside from his ability on the field, like that dude was just a pain in the ass in the locker room and just not a very good dude, off the field to deal with. I think his brother was just more of the epitome of the player I like to see in the NFL, which is the hard news, get in there and just play and not be a problematic child, as Martellus was even in his later years. So yeah, it's Michael for me.
No, I have to agree. I think it's Michael also. As an Eagles fan, he played for us for a year after our Super Bowl run. And one of the things that one of my favorite things, it's one of my favorite pieces of equipment that any NFL player had was he had those very little kicker shoulder pads. I don't know if those of you guys at home have ever seen it, but I mean, Michael Bennett is, I don't know, what, 6'3", 280, and he's wearing these little kicker shoulder pads where the kickers are normally 5'10", 180, right? And it looked hilarious. He always said it was for like a competitive advantage, so that way people couldn't hold him. So I always thought that was very funny. But no, I think Michael was definitely the better of the two. If nothing else, he also has the pedigree of being on the Legion of Boom, and he was a key piece of that Legion of Boom. He wasn't just a participant. So yeah, I got to agree there. I think it's Michael.
This is a fun one for you. Look, we're all going to know that Cam Newton is going to be the better brother of the two because I would guess that 99% of the people listening to this podcast right now have no idea that Cecil Newton, Cam's younger brother, actually played in the NFL. Mike's shaking his head for those of you at home, which means he also didn't know that Cecil played. I'm not going to pretend like I did. I found it when I looked at a list, okay? Because Cecil Bennett, or Cecil Bennett, Cecil Newton. I don't even know his name. That's how unimportant this guy. Look, he was a center. He went in undrafted in 2009. Played 2 seasons with the Jaguars on a practice squad. Left the NFL, but I thought it was interesting because Cam Newton, obviously, very well known player, and you heard nothing of his brother coming to the NFL, playing in the NFL, leaving the NFL. You hear about Cam still wanting to be in the NFL, and again, most of you had no idea that Cecil was even a real person, but he is. Cecil Newton out there rocking it with the Jags.
Yeah, and just a quick cross sports comparison. It's kind of interesting how the NFL works in comparison to a sport like the NBA, where everybody who knows anything about the NBA knows Giannis Antetokounmpo, considered either the best, the second best, third best, whatever you want to call him, player in the NBA right now. He's got like 3 brothers that are all in the league, and they're all not good, and half of them are with the Bucks, and it's like they're just around because Giannis is there. Steph Curry had a similar situation with his brother Seth. Seth has now turned into a good player, but like it was 5, 6, 7 years before he turned into anything relevant. Nowadays in the NFL, I mean, I didn't even know Cam had a brother. Like, and he was
right.
He was the face of that franchise for the Panthers for 8 years or 10 years or however long.
You knew about Cam.
I had no idea who he was, and he didn't even ask to have his brother on the team. Like, that's how little pull these guys have. So just a very interesting dichotomy there.
Yeah, I mean, look, you knew who Newton was when he was in college. I mean, again, I didn't even know Cecil existed until I looked at this piece of paper.
I didn't know Cecil existed until about 25 minutes ago.
All right. Rondé and Tiki Barber.
Ooh, yeah.
There's some good players. They're older guys, been out of the league for a little bit, but, both very solid in their own right.
Yeah. I got to go with Rondé personally. I have always been a Rondé Barber fan. For me, he was one of those top flight shutdown corners in the league. Certainly he was no Champ Bailey or, Darrelle Revis, but for me, he was on that rung right below them. I think he's been a great player. It also helps that I didn't have to face him twice a year in rushing. So, there's a little bit of that. But no, I think Rondé always was stuck on a bad team. And so he probably never got a lot of the credit that he probably deserved because the Bucks were just so bad for so long. I think they have the worst winning percentage of any North American franchise in history of all of sports. And so I think he's probably a little bit overlooked, and I think Tiki is probably a little bit
hyped.
inflated because of the defense that ended up helping carry them to a couple Super Bowls.
Yeah, I gotta go with you again. Like we'll disagree on one eventually, but it's not gonna be this one. It's Rondé for me as well. All right, another two brothers. I think this one will be easy. One still playing in the NFL, actually just got a pretty good contract. The other one is talking about football on television, just to show you how good he was. I'm talking about the Carr brothers, David and Derek Carr. Shockingly, if you put the two of them next to each other and their stats their first few years in the league, they're almost identical. Yet somehow Derek was able to stick around long enough to get this big contract, and David is now calling games in a booth.
Yeah, and he's actually even out there calling Dave. He's calling Derek. I forget what it was. I think he said this year he sent out a tweet that he was going to be like, "Oh, you're going to see that my brother is, not only is he the most valuable quarterback that the franchise ever had, he's the most valuable one the NFL has ever seen," and that just did not happen. So,
Yeah, I mean, like he's definitely not the most valuable quarterback in the league. I mean, like it
he's a
should
good
be.
quarterback, but
He's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I agree with him. The Raiders were dumb the way they handled that situation.
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely,
and I do think he was better than David in the grand scheme of things. But David definitely had his
one
career
million
cut
percent.
short a little bit. All right, these two special place in my heart. They actually both played on the same team together in 2008. A
There you go.
cornerback and middle linebacker. I'm talking about Champ and Boss Bailey.
First off, can we
Um,
talk about how great those names are? Champ and Boss.
and
Like
Boss. Yep.
what?
Yeah, I
Oh,
remember. I remember. I mean, Champ Bailey, obviously, arguably one of the greatest corners to ever play the game. But I remember that season when we're like, "Who is Boss Bailey? His name is Boss. Yep, that's his. It wasn't a nickname. He's not like nope. His name was Boss. So, Boss Bailey. Like Champ was the better of the two. Boss hung around the league for a little bit. He was a middle linebacker. He definitely wasn't anywhere close to special, and I don't even know if I'd give him a good tag, but he played, and at one point played with his brother, who was way
yeah,
better than him.
yeah. Hey, congrats, boss, for making it to the NFL. Congrats for playing with your brother. That's awesome. But Champ Bailey, you're an all timer.
Yeah, look to me, this combo was almost like talking about like Shaquille and Shaquem Griffin.
Yeah,
Like one of them is a very good corner, and one of them,
good play.
unfortunately has one hand and couldn't make it, So nothing against the two of them, but it's just how it shakes out sometimes.
This is true.
All right, we got Brent and Garrett Celtic.
Selleck?
Yeah, so an Eagle and a Niner.
Yeah, yeah. Look, Eagles fan. We love Brent Selleck. For us, he was one of our hometown favorites. When he ended up winning that Super Bowl that final year, and then he retired and went off into the sunset. That was fantastic. It was a storybook ending for us. We didn't want to see him go anywhere else. We knew he was older. He had about 2 or 3 years where he was a really, really good tight end before Zach Ertz kind of came into the league and did his thing. He was, I think he had 1,000 yards receiving as a tight end one year. He was with some of those teams with Mike Vick where they were just super explosive and super fun to watch, even though they might not have really been doing a whole lot of winning. But yeah, he was always a very good player for us. I always liked him a lot. Garrett Selleck, yeah, he was a 49ers guy. He was fine. He was more of a blocking tight end than anything. Good guy. I had never heard anything bad coming out about him, but I would have to say Brent was probably the better of the two.
Yeah, I think Brett definitely got a lot more accolades and recognition and spotlight, I guess might be a good way to put it
Yep.
than his brother did. But both saw tight ends, but yeah, I think Brett as well. All right, this is a solid pair. Both playing in the league right now. Both were highly touted, top 5 picks coming out of their respective draft classes. Joey and Nick Bosa. Their father also played. I don't know why I didn't move that down to our father one, but sure, we'll throw him in there. Their father, John Bosa, also played defensive end in the league. He only played for 3 years, so he's definitely not anything special like his sons are. But let's talk about these two guys, Joey and Nick Bosa.
Yep.
Where are you at with those two guys? Because I feel pretty strongly on who I think is the better of the two, but I can see where somebody might swing the other direction.
Oh, for me, I think it's pretty clear, and I don't think that there's much of a debate. So I'm hoping that we're going to be on the same side of this, because otherwise, I'm going to think you like you're crazy. But some backstory onto this: when Joey was in the league and Joey was tearing up and Joey was doing his thing, and he was considered a Pro Bowl caliber player, I remember there was talks of his little brother Nick, and I'm like, and everyone's like, oh, this kid's going to be even better than his brother. And in my head, I'm like, there is no way that this kid is going to be better than his brother. I'm like, Joey, in my mind, is a top 5 pass rusher in the league. He's a top 7 pass rusher in the league, however, wherever you want to put him. I was like, oh, Joey is great. There's no way that this kid Nick is going to be any better than him. And then he sat out that year, and I was just like, there is no way that this kid is going to be any good. He is even better than advertised. I think that Nick Bosa is far and away the more superior brother to Joey. Ever since Nick has come into the league, he has been nothing shy of probably a top 3 pass rusher. He ended up winning defensive player of the year last year, led the league in sacks. He was up there in forced fumbles. I think Nick is on the path to definitely be a Hall of Famer. Now it's very early in his career, but I think Joey is more on a trajectory of being in the Hall of Very Good, if you will.
All right, no debate. It's Nick.
Yeah.
All right, Vontae and Vernon Davis.
Yeah.
I got Vontae. And not just because I love the movie Draft Day, and Vontae Mack is the first thing I think of when I hear the name Vontae. But look, I think he was, almost like Rondé in a sense. I don't think he was as good as Rondé, but he was a upper echelon defensive back in that time period, where Vernon was a good tight end, but he was not. I don't, he was a vertical run really fast, maybe catch a big pass here or there, but I don't think he played in the league for a long time, but I don't think he had the impact that Vontae did on the league. So I think Vontae is the guy I take of those two.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably gonna be our first disagreement, but I'm not like super passionate about it. For me, I think it's Vernon. I hear what you're saying. I agree that Vontae's probably overlooked in some aspects of things, but I mean, Vernon Davis for me, he came in. So it's funny that I compare him to. I'm about to make him a comparison to Frank Gore, considering him and Frank Gore played together for forever on the same team.
Sure did.
But for me, Vernon Davis is almost like a Frank Gore, like a watered down Frank Gore, right? He's not as good of a tight end as Frank was as a running back, but I mean, the guy played for forever. I mean, he was in the league from like 06 to like almost 2020 or something like. I mean, he only retired a handful of years ago. I mean, he was around for forever. And so I don't know. I think that his constant 700, 800, 900 yard seasons that he was putting up as a tight end and kind of before we were seeing Gronk and Kelsey put up 1,000 yards, 1,200 yards every single season. I think he was almost like a prerequisite to all of them and kind of helped lay a little bit of the groundwork for them. So I would have to say Vernon was probably a little bit better than Vontae, but I said I don't think I'm like overly passionate about this one. If you want to say Vontae, I'm not going to fight you too hard on it.
Yeah, like I will tell you this: when Vontae, the way Vontae kind of exited the league was, I feel, disappointing. Maybe I should say, because when things kind of fell apart with the Colts, he just kind of vanished. Where he was still, I thought he still could have stuck around and played, and he just kind of like, I just feel like it soured very quickly with who I thought he was and who he, the person he put up when he was mad about how things kind of ended there. So I'll give you that. All right. Zach and Nick Martin both play centers. Nick Martin actually pretty solid. Just got a 3-year extension, 3 for $33 million, $11 million a year is a decent paycheck for a center. With the Texans, but still you're getting paid. So I mean, it counts for something.
You're definitely not going to win, so you got to make it count where it counts.
How do we need to debate this? I mean, look, we know that Zach Martin's one of the best centers of all time. So do we need to have that conversation?
I don't think so. I think Zach would still be playing to this day if he didn't have that unfortunate illness that he was dealing with. And yeah, I mean, he's a future Hall of Famer. He's probably amongst the All-Decade team, multiple-time Pro Bowler. Enough said. Zach Martin.
All right, now this next one's kind of a fun one for me. Again, I think this is not a debate, but if you've ever heard of the name Jordan Palmer, he is a quarterback. All right. Probably know his brother a little bit better. Carson Palmer played with Cincinnati for quite a long time, but his name's really on here because I like this fun fact. Jordan Palmer actually played with the Bengals and backed up his own brother for 3 years from 2008 to 2010. I don't know. I didn't realize that
Yeah.
when it was happening, but kind of a fun fact that you're being backed up by your own brother.
Yeah, no, that's actually news to me. I didn't know that until a couple minutes ago. But it's funny. I actually know the name Jordan Palmer because I don't know how famous you want to call it, but I mean he's famous for having a camp for high school kids and college kids for quarterback coaching, right? And so that's actually how I knew that was how I first heard of him, and that was I don't know 7 or 8 years ago. So he was clearly out of the league by then. So I didn't even know Jordan Palmer played in the NFL, let alone was Carson's backup. And so yeah, no, I thought that was a fun one. I like that little fun fact. Nice job finding that one.
All right,
Oh boy,
Sterling
yeah,
Sharp and
yeah,
Shannon Sharp.
yeah.
It's another cool name, Sterling.
Is a cool name.
Um, One of these guys is a Hall of Famer,
Yeah,
considered an all-time great.
yeah.
One of them is
And the
not
other one
in,
is and the other one is Shannon.
and one of them is not in the Hall of Fame.
Uh-huh.
Um, like man, I think Shannon's one of the best tight ends to ever play the game.
Yep.
And he himself will tell you he thinks his brother is better than he was. I mean,
Yep.
Sterling was an elite wide receiver in his own right.
Yeah.
It's really hard for me because obviously Shannon holds a special place
In your
in my
Denver
heart.
Broncos heart.
Um, so it's really, and it was the same time period where you had a certain level of dislike for the Packers because
Hmm.
they were also very good at that time period. So I don't know. I know you're going to pick Sterling, so I feel like I have to pick Shannon just to do that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll let you ponder on that for a moment if you want. But yeah, for me, I think it's Sterling. I think Sterling Sharp is probably one of the most fascinating what if stories in the NFL. Very, very unfortunate injury. I believe it was a neck injury that caused his playing career to end prematurely. He played about 5 or 6 years or something like that with the Packers. He was on those Brett Favre teams. Um, Fun fact, he's one of like what 4 wide receivers ever to have the triple crown in one year. For those of you that don't know, triple crown is receptions, yards, and touchdowns by a wide receiver. He led the league in all 3 of those in one season. Um, he was clearly an elite wide receiver. Um, he was a multiple-time Pro Bowler. I don't know if he ever made the All-Pro team. I don't know if he played enough years to make the All-Pro team. Sorry, not the All-Pro, the All-Decade team. I don't know if he ever made the All-Decade team or not. But look, for me, like Shannon says, I think that Sterling on a talent level is clearly better. I think it was just one of the biggest what ifs to ever happen. I think Sterling had a chance to go down as a top 5 wide receiver of all time. It's just crazy things happen and injuries happen, but on a talent level I'll take Sterling over Shannon personally.
I know it's hard. I probably in a debate would have to probably end up agreeing with you. Sterling was, I mean, triple crown. I
Yeah.
mean, enough said. So, all right, this next trio of brothers playing the NFL, 2 of these guys were first round draft picks. We have Marcus, Isaiah, and Desmond Trufant,
Yeah.
all playing cornerback. Now I knew about Marcus and Desmond. Isaiah Trufant, not necessarily a household name, but also still playing in the NFL today as a cornerback. So 3 solid brothers in there. Desmond to me is the pick here. I think he's the bigger known name. Both, him and Marcus were first round draft picks, which is great for Marcus. I think he's definitely a really good corner, but I think Desmond is a next level, corner.
Yeah, no, I got to agree. Not too much to say there. Yeah, good for it's a heck of a family line to have 3 brothers all in the league, so that's awesome. But yeah, Desmond I think is probably the consensus best of the 3.
Now, talk through some families. I know that I screwed up and we talked about the Bosas earlier, but we're gonna talk about some families. I got 5 here, and these are good ones. Were kind of interesting because all of these guys were, good in their own right, and produced some great offspring, if you will. I mean, honestly, I guess the reason I'll leave the Bosas out is John Bosa was probably the only one that we're going to talk about that wasn't necessarily a solid, impactful player for a long period of time. These other ones.
Yep.
I'm gonna kind of mix up them on the list here, Mike. So don't pay too much attention to it, but just kind of I want to build up to some of these bigger ones. So let's
Sure.
start with this one here. Clay Jr. All right, Matthews, linebacker, played 19 seasons in the NFL. Fun fact: he had the third most tackles in NFL history. All right, his sons Clay and Casey Matthews both played in the NFL. Obviously, Clay Matthews the third, a lot more known for his Super Bowl with the Packers and that hair.
Yeah.
His dad might be better than him though. Like, I mean, that was way before my time, but third
Oh
all
yeah.
time in sack or in tackles in NFL history, like that's a pretty nuts record. Um, and look, I mean, the apple clearly didn't fall too far. I mean, Casey not so much got it, but Clay definitely got those genes because he was a very good, linebacker for quite a while. Not so much now. He's still in the league, but not really.
Surprisingly.
Yeah, not really doing much right now. But I mean, in that heyday when the Packers went to that Super Bowl and won, I mean, he was a key piece of that offense or that defense getting it done.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, Clay was fantastic in his own right for sure. But yeah, I think the body of work is kind of hard to, disagree with on the father. 19 seasons played or something like. I mean, come on now, like, Clay is still playing, but Clay seems to be on his last legs, if you will. I don't think he's ever going to make it to 19 seasons. I don't think he's going to sniff third most tackles in NFL history. So I think based off the body of work alone, you got to go with the father, Clay.
Now this one we're going to go with one of the sons. Three of them play in the league. So talk about being a proud father when you yourself played 7 years in the NFL and then sprout up not one, not two, but three sons who play in the NFL. And some of these kids are pretty solid. So
Yeah.
Farrell Edmonds was a tight end for 7 years in the league. His sons Trey, Terrell, and Tremaine Edmonds are all in the league now. Some of these guys you've probably heard of. Some of them you haven't. I'm going to be honest. I didn't even realize. I knew who Trey Edmonds was. He was a
Mm-hmm.
running back for the Steelers. I did not realize they were all related to each other.
Oh yeah.
But obviously, Terrell Edmonds is a safety, and then Tremaine Edmonds, I think, is probably the best of all of them. The linebacker who just left the Bills, but to me, he's probably the best of all of them. But that's a pretty good lineage there. Four solid players. Trey, I mean, is a decent back. When he's got his play time, but obviously he's in a situation where he's probably never playing over Najee Harris, so he's not ever going to get the notoriety the looks that he could. But
Yeah.
um, you know, four in two generations in the league is a solid run.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's not as good as one of the lineages that we're going to talk about a little bit later, but it's definitely very respectable. For you to have four family members to be able to play in the NFL, that's just absolutely crazy. Also kind of goes to show a little bit of like, hey, when you can see your dad doing it, see how much hard work and effort your dad's putting in. If it's something you're passionate about too, and you have the genetics within you too, it's helpful to have your father who's been like, look, this is exactly what I did. This is how I got to the league. These are the things that you need to do. This is what I did wrong. So we'll help you get there faster. So yeah, it's kind of cool to see though. But I would have to agree. It's definitely Tremaine.
All right, Howie Long, the
Yeah.
Hall of Fame defensive end,
Yeah.
has two sons, Chris
Yep.
Long and Kyle Long, who
Yep.
phenomenal defensive end and guard in the league for a um, very good amount of time. Both of those guys. That's another solid family that just, I mean, these were men that played football.
Yeah.
Big dudes, defensive end. I mean, this was in the trenches warfare. He learned from their dad. Um, Interesting that Kyle decided to be on the other side of that and take the pushing back side.
I mean, look, when you have one of your brothers is, when the dad's showing off the moves that he's doing, you got to use an example on somebody, right? So, that's probably where Kyle fit in there and probably made for some fun practices at home and stuff like that. If Kyle was trying to, pass block his brother Chris from edge rushing to, the dinner table or something like that. So I'm sure that was always fun household growing up in, but
Kind of like a set of
great
brothers we didn't talk about, the Diggs brothers, right? Stefan and Trayvon Diggs.
yeah.
I mean, it's part of why Trayvon's a corner is because he was always playing corner against his brother.
But wasn't he
Um,
actually a wide receiver in Alabama, and then he converted when he
I
got
think he converted, but I mean, he's done interviews where he said that part of the reason
there?
he's able to make that transition, but clearly he should be a wide receiver because I think he'd be better at wide receiver than corner because he's just too overly aggressive. But he's never going to be
Yeah.
Diggs. Stephon is clearly the better of those. But
Yeah. Who would you say is better though between Chris, Kyle, and Howie?
probably Howie.
Yeah, I'd have to say Howie's also probably better. Who would you say is better between Chris or Kyle?
That's tough.
Really, I think it's Chris. I think
I
Chris Long
think I think
better.
Chris Long probably wins it too. I think Kyle was really good, and I don't think he will. He got some of the notoriety that Chris did, but I think there were some years where Chris was just absolutely dominant. So yeah, I
Oh
think
yeah, Chris was real good
Chris will
early
probably
in
get.
St. Louis. He was real good for a couple of years with the Patriots. He was a very solid rotational piece for us for a couple of years, and yeah, I'd have to say Chris is the second best of the two.
All right, this next father and sons. Interesting fact. So the father and both of his sons have all at one point or another played for the same exact team, which is kind of fun. Um, Dad has 3 rings in 13 seasons, which is a pretty solid run. Um,
Yeah,
Ed McCaffrey, wide receiver, 2 rings with the Broncos, 1 with the 49ers. His son, Max McCaffrey, uh, undrafted, decided to play with the Niners as a wide receiver. He's also played with the Packers, the Saints, the Jags, and the Raiders, and has never really been much of anything. Um,
no,
but his younger brother, Christian McCaffrey, or
yeah,
CMC, as he's more
run
commonly known,
CMC.
now also plays with the 49ers. And we had that conversation earlier this year. He's one of the top, running backs in the league. Um, Look, I think that Ed was phenomenal. Look,
Sure.
he's a Denver guy, right? I mean, he lives in Denver. He coaches in Denver. He's still in Denver, or the surrounding Colorado area. He won 2 rings with Denver. I think Christian's better. Um, he has a lot of what Ed instilled in him. I mean, if you hear some of the stories that they talk about when they're younger, like you want to talk about a father who trained his sons to be great at football, like that's what Ed did to his kids their entire life growing up, and now you have one of the all-time great running backs in the league today. You know, as your son, I think we all had him number 1 overall actually going into the year. So
Yeah, we
it's
did.
a pretty good job, Dad.
Yeah, no, and it's another really great duo. Sorry, Max, never heard of you before today. Look, if Ed McCaffrey is the considered middling slash semi disappointment of the family, I mean, you've done really really well. Ed McCaffrey was a very solid, very good, very helpful wide receiver for you guys for a long time.
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. It's hard to say win that Super Bowl with or without him, but he was definitely a key contributor to her. It's not like he was some backup role player. It's not
Nope.
like he was just the fourth, fifth wide receiver. He was definitely a very pivotal piece to that team.
Yep.
But look, Christian is probably going to be a Hall of Famer. And if he doesn't win a Super Bowl, it won't be his fault. He's a running back, but he's probably the most versatile running back we've seen, I don't know, in the last 15, 20 years.
So our last family we're going to talk about today, I want to try to think of the word I wanted to use. Uh,
Royalty.
yeah, that's the one I think we're going to use of the NFL. Like there's going to be no debate on who the best of this family is, but I more want to talk about this is looking to be the first 3 generation team,
Yeah.
family in the league. Not only that, but the father who played quarterback,
Yeah.
three sons. 2 of them played quarterback in the NFL, and the one who didn't, both of them will say was the most athletic of all of them, but aside from some scary injury stuff, never got a chance to play. Um,
Nope.
but both of his sons were number 1 overall picks at quarterback,
That alone is stellar.
and his grandson is
Yeah.
going to be the number 1 overall pick
He's
at
already
quarterback.
uh, he's already Trevor Lawrence 2.0, right? We all know he's going number 1 overall. It's just a matter of what year
And
is he
he's
eligible.
still in high school, right? So obviously we're talking about the Manning family. Archie Manning, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning. Um, again, Cooper Manning, their brother, was a wide receiver. Dude was phenomenal. Some injuries destroyed his career. But his son, Arch Manning, all right, looking out for his pops, is going to go out and yeah, he's going to be the #1 overall pick in about 3 years. I think. Let's see, he plays high school. This is his last high school year. 3 more years. So that puts us in what 2026, 2027 draft.
26. It'll be the.
He'll be drafted #1 overall because that's how that's going to go. And it's not just a name, like that kid is good.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
this clips this kid out here throwing 60, 70-yard bombs as a junior in high school on a string.
Crazy.
I love how when they listed this, I was looking up some of these names and I'm looking up some stats about these guys. They're like Archie Manning, his two sons, drafted 1 overall, and they're like both of them have won 2 Super Bowls, and that's how they ended it. Like, let's not play games, man. Putting the disrespect on Peyton's name to lump him in that conversation with Eli, like, hey, they were both #1 overall picks and won 2 Super Bowls. Like, no, we're talking about a top 3 all time, quarterback. On I don't know, almost any list you could ever come up with for quarterbacks.
Yeah, I
versus
mean, look,
Eli, who will but should not get into the Hall of Fame. Yeah, Peyton's clearly the best, but man, that family. Yeah, we want to talk about NFL royalty.
yeah,
I mean,
no, that family,
generations of great.
that family is the standard of excellence of NFL play. Yeah, look, Peyton won 5 MVPs. He went to like 13 or 14 Pro Bowls. He was an All-Pro like 7 times, 6 times, something like that. He was up there for the all-time passing yard leader. He was up there for touchdowns. He's up there. He's up there for just like anything and everything of a major statistical category. He's up there in.
Still holds the record for the most passing yards and passing touchdowns in a single season.
Yep.
Even though there is another game,
yep,
no one has come close to beating him.
No, and it's going to take probably. I mean, it could happen next year, I suppose, but just because of how crazy Patrick Mahomes is. But I don't see anybody breaking that without the 17th game. I think that the only chance that record goes down is because there's that 17th game.
It's crazy. Like Patrick Mahomes' best season, he threw
5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns.
That's a lot of fucking touchdowns, man. Like that's a lot of touchdowns. Yeah. Peyton threw 55. Like even adding in another game, a 5-touchdown passing game is like elite ridiculousness of a game. Like that's like even the best of the best don't have 5 passing touchdown games. Well, sometimes even once a season is like a maybe. So even with the 17th game, as good as I think Patrick Mahomes is, I don't know if he can get there. I mean, that's a lot of touchdowns, man.
I don't know. I don't know if I see the passing touchdown one falling anytime soon. That's an astronomical number.
He would need to average over 3 passing touchdowns a game.
No, it's a crazy number. I don't see that happening personally. Not to say it can't, but I don't see it happening. But yeah, I don't know. I think Eli. I'm with you. Eli for me is probably an overrated quarterback. I don't know if he either finished his career at 500 or like just below 500 in terms of winning percentage. Like he was literally for me the definition of an average quarterback. He was just on some all-time historic defenses. And, in 2 games, the Patriots were held to 14 and 17 points combined. And so that if you put both those games together, that was still less than the winning score of this year's Super Bowl, right? Like, and Eli ended up squeaking by winning 2. He won with 21 points and 20 and 17 points, or 21 and 24, something like that, where it was like, it was nothing special. He was kind of a game manager, if you will. He just played in the league for so long, and he had such a long consistency of, I think he was like top 3 all time for most consecutive snaps played or something like that, or consecutive games played or something like that. And, the only reason that came to an end was because the Giants were like, hey, look, we're terrible. We're going to try Geno Smith for a week and see how that goes. And that was kind of the end of it. But like, Eli's fine. I don't think it's very close. I think to put Peyton and Eli in the same conversation, the fact that they're going to be in the same shrining hall together is kind of unfair, but it is what it is.
Respectful.
Yeah. Real quick, I know we're probably done in terms of father, son, brother duo, stuff like that, but fun fact, my father, he actually went to high school with two brothers that made it to the NFL, John Taylor and Keith Taylor. So if you guys are 49ers fans and you're, remembering any of those touchdown grabs in the Super Bowl, one of those was from John Taylor. So he went to Pennsauken High School with my father. So him and his brother Keith. Keith was kind of a guy that bounced around the league, but yeah, John Taylor, super well known. A lot of people probably know him. Like I said, I forget what it is. It's one of those. It has one of those names, whether it was like it wasn't the drive or the play or the catch. It was one of those the moments that he was involved with. So it's pretty cool.
Nice. It's funny if you think about it. Like if you think about guys then who bounced around the league, like they probably are working real jobs now because they didn't make that kind of. Now you talk about a who bounces around the league,
Making
and
$600,000 a year.
and that's a bad bounce. I mean, look at Baker bouncing around the league, making $8 million this year. So
Yeah.
all right, we're gonna talk to these guys real quick. I mean, look, I know we're kind of running a little short on time, but some father sons in the league. Um, we got Sean Hockley and Ed Hockley. You and some officials.
Yeah.
Only reason I did that is because they were father son, but I don't know. As much as I hate officiating the NFL, and I think it's a joke, the Hockleys are probably one of the most well-known officials in the NFL circle. So I had to throw
business.
I had to,
one of the famous
throw that one in
penalties.
there. All right, coaches. Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan, I think respectively both, some of the best during their time frame.
Yeah.
Mike actually still spends a pretty good amount of his time helping Kyle with the 49ers. He's pretty involved on a day-to-day basis. It's the only reason you'll never see
not
Mike.
A Hall of Famer.
Yeah, look, we can have that debate, for the next
there's no
7
debate.
hours.
I don't understand how he's not a Hall of Famer either. I'm not going to fight. I'm out here saying he absolutely should be
disrespectful. All right. Look, I mean, yeah, Mike Shanahan taught his son. He is the father of NFL offenses today. They all run a variation of his West Coast style. And yeah, like the fact that he's not in the Hall of Fame is a disgrace. But I mean, look, he taught Kyle well. Kyle is top 5 coaches in the NFL.
Certainly a top 3 young coach in the NFL. Yeah,
right. We could argue to put him higher than that, but I think you could definitely put him lower than like if I were to sit back and name some guys, like he's for sure
Andy, Bill, all time.
Andy, Bill, Sean.
He's up there with Sean. I think he's right there. Like
2 Seans, Sean Payton and Sean McVay. And
I think he's better than Sean Payton.
We'll see. Sean Payton in his 13-year career with the Saints, number 1, and number 3 in all offensive categories. Yeah. And that is over his entire time there.
But I think he loses a little bit of credit because in the same way that Andy Reid lost credit for being so bad on the defensive side of the ball for so long and couldn't win, I got to hold that on, the head coach somewhere. So, as an offensive mind, sure, maybe, but I don't know. For me, I think he's probably better.
Look, we'll see. Look, I hate Sean Payton when slightly less because I have to now. But for not giving Alvin Kamara his 7th touchdown, I will never let that go. But I think to that same extent, if I'm looking at a coach, if I could pick any coach, we play that game. If you could pick any coach to run your team, I don't know, man. I might, if we were in a draft situation, we get down, I'd probably pick him over 27 other coaches in the league. So I'm not saying I'd pick him over Bill or Andy or McVay or Kyle, but after that,
yeah, he's on a short list there.
Like
it's probably keep Pete Carroll, and that's about it.
Yep, Pete's really good too. But look, I can hire a really good defensive coordinator and know that I don't have to worry about anything else on that team. So that's how I look at it. This father-son be our last one before I get into some cool conversation. I thought this was kind of interesting. So Jackie Slater, all right, he's an offensive tackle. He's in the Hall of Fame. Played 20 years for the Rams. That's a long career. 20 years in the league.
I'm hardly 20 years old, man. I'm 27. I'm hardly 20, and the man played in the NFL almost that long.
Now his son is still playing in the league now. He's going on like his, I don't know, he's 15th season, I think. Matthew Slater, with the Patriots. Some people probably heard his name, some haven't. I've known who he is, but
Mhm.
a thing I didn't really realize when I went to look at this, do you know he's been to 10 Pro Bowls?
Yeah, I did. I
10
did
Pro
know that.
Bowls
Yeah,
and
he's
two All
considered.
Pro selections. Now, it's a special team
I would
guy,
say it's as the gunner,
because
but yes,
if you look at his, like, he's got like one reception in the last 4 years, but
yeah,
as a special teams guy, 15 years, 10 Pro Bowls. I mean, that's some and his father being a Hall of Famer with 20 years. I mean, that's a solid
that's
30,
absolutely a great. That's
35 years of
absolutely
Slater dominance in the NFL.
absolutely for sure. Yeah, I think it's funny because Matthew Slater, for anyone that's not a Patriots fan, probably doesn't realize that it's kind of odd that he is not a household name, he's not very well
Right.
recognized, yet he's one of the captains of that team. I mean, that just goes to show you what kind of a player that, and even a person that he really is. The fact that he's not a traditional starter, if you will. He's a special teams player, but he clearly takes his role seriously. Bill loves those kinds of guys. He's clearly a great locker room guy because I mean he's come back year in and year out and is willing to be a special teamer, and everyone has to love him because he's a team captain. So yeah, clearly he's a great guy. He gets voted to the Pro Bowl year almost every single year. I don't know if I would be willing to put him in the Hall of Fame because look, I'm with almost everybody in the sense that like Devin Hester should be in the Hall of Fame. That's ridiculous that he's not. For me, if you're arguably the best ever at your position, you probably belong in the Hall of Fame. But I don't know if I can put a special teams gunner in the Hall of Fame or not. So,
ten
maybe we
Pro
can talk
Bowls.
about that later. But I mean, look, he's had a fantastic career. Good for him. I hope that he has a great long career afterwards in selling used cars in the Boston area because he's probably a Boston legend.
If he plays for a couple more years, he'll set some NFL record for longest tenured player in the NFL.
Awesome.
All right, so his next chunk of guys, fathers and sons, all play the same position as their father, all play the same position as all of them. They're all cornerbacks. Their fathers all played a long period in the NFL. We're all very good corners.
Yep, over 10 years each of them.
11 years, and 13 years in the league. And now we look at their sons, are all really, really good corners in the NFL. You want to talk
Yeah.
about passing down the knowledge of being great? Look, Pat Surtain and Pat
Yep.
Surtain II,
Yep.
Asante Samuel and Asante Samuel Jr., and the only one who didn't give his name to his son to carry into this because that would have been too perfect for this conversation.
Sure would have been.
Joe Horn and J.C. Horn. I mean, these are three of the best young,
Yeah.
guys in the league right now,
Yep.
and their father's 10+ years in the league. That's a solid outing and some good lineage, get some good seed they're passing down to these kids.
Absolutely. You throw in Woolen and you throw in Sauce Gardner, and that's the top five young corners in the league right
Yep,
there.
yep. And probably the top one is on that list. So
Hard to
um,
argue. Yeah.
it's a solid list. So look, man,
Yeah.
I think we definitely had some good fun today talking through some of these guys. It actually made me while we were talking, I was thinking of some funny stuff. So we'll put it out there. Maybe we'll put some thoughts into it. But I'm thinking about inviting a Patriots fan on here,
Ugh,
and
why?
I think we're gonna have a conversation about how I think Tom Brady's overrated.
I'm sorry. What?
So there's your cliffhanger.
Hold on, this is news to me. You're gonna have a conversation about what?
Why Tom Brady's overrated. So stay tuned for next month when we roll out the Tom Brady overrated episode.
What?
Bye, everybody.